The crystalline spires of the Valdrin Imperial Palace stretched toward 3 suns, casting rainbow shadows across the polished marble courtyards. Marcus Webb stepped off the transport shuttle, his worn duffel bag slung over one shoulder and his mop cart rattling behind him. He was 47 years old, with calloused hands and silver threading through his dark hair. His grandfather's old titanium mop gleamed in the alien sunlight, the only thing he truly valued. Around him, dozens of species moved to the palace entrance. Tall insectoids clicked their mandibles in conversation. Floating gas beings drifted past in containment bubbles. 4-armed warriors in ceremonial armor stood guard at every archway. Marcus pushed his cart forward, wheels squeaking, and nobody gave him a second glance. The human delegation had arrived 3 months ago. Earth had finally been noticed by the Galactic Imperium after millennia of isolation. The aliens had assessed humanity's technology, their weapons, their culture. The verdict had been swift and dismissive. Humans were primitives. They had nothing of value to offer except labor. So Earth sent workers, maintenance crews, janitors. Marcus didn't mind. He had been cleaning for 30 years. Stationed ships' warehouses. His grandfather had cleaned the Mars colony during the Station Wars. His great-grandmother had kept the first lunar base spotless during the resource riots. The Webb family knew how to clean, and they took pride in it. A palace official, a bird-like creature with purple feathers, thrust a datapad toward him. Human worker, you are assigned to Sector 7. Imperial Throne Room. You will clean during second shift when the Emperor is not present. Do not touch anything except floors. Do not speak to nobility. Do not exist in their sight. Marcus nodded. Yes, ma'am. When do I start? Now. The throne room was magnificent. The ceiling rose 100 feet high, covered in murals depicting the conquest of 847 worlds. The floor was ancient stone, worn smooth by countless feet over thousands of years. At the far end, the throne itself sat on a raised platform, carved from a single piece of black crystal that seemed to drink in light. Marcus set down his bucket and filled it with water from a service alcove. He added his cleaning solution, the same recipe his grandfather had taught him. Nothing fancy, just soap, vinegar, and something extra his family never named. Respect the surface, his grandfather always said. Let it tell you what it needs. He began in the corner farthest from the throne. Long, smooth strokes, figure-8 patterns. His grandfather had been specific about the patterns. The water needs to flow right, the old man had explained. Everything flows, Marcus. Energy, water, luck. A good cleaner helps along. Marcus had been working for 20 minutes when voices echoed through the chamber. He glanced up. A procession entered the throne room. At its center walked Emperor Zarthok, 3 himself. The Emperor stood 12 feet tall, his scales shifting between green and gold. His eyes were amber with vertical slits. And when he noticed Marcus, those eyes narrowed with amusement. The nobles surrounding him fell silent. What is this? The Emperor's voice rumbled like distant thunder. A human? Here. Marcus straightened, but didn't stop wringing out his mop. Just cleaning, Your Majesty. I'll stay out of your way. The Emperor laughed. It was not a kind sound. Out of my way? You are beneath my notice. Creature, this is what humanity offers the Imperium? Mop pushers and floor scrubbers. The court joined in the laughter. A noble with 6 legs and crystalline skin sneered. Perhaps they will clean the waste reclamation next. It suits their level. Marcus felt the familiar heat in his chest, the same heat he'd felt 1,000 times when people dismiss his work. But his grandfather's voice echoed in his mind. Let them laugh, boy. We know the truth. We keep the world running while they take credit. He dipped his mop and continued working. The Emperor watched for a moment longer, then dismissed Marcus with a wave of his clawed hand. The procession moved toward the throne, already forgetting the human existed. But someone didn't forget. At the edge of the group, an ancient insectoid with silver carapace and too many eyes lingered. Lady S.H. Vera, the court historian, watched Marcus work. She watched the patterns he made on the floor. She watched how the water seemed to catch the light in strange ways. As Marcus completed a section near the base of a column, his mop passed over a spot where a noble had spilled purple nectar earlier that day. The nectar disappeared, and beneath it, the ancient stone revealed something unexpected. Faint lines glowed for just a moment, symbols in a language older than the Imperium itself. Lady S.H. Vera's compound eyes widened. She said nothing, but she made a mental note. She would be watching this human janitor very carefully. Marcus finished his section, dumped his dirty water, and packed his cart. As he left through the service entrance, the palace security system recorded an anomaly. A faint energy signature emanated from his mop, a frequency that matched nothing in the Imperial database. The AI logged it as a sensor error and moved on. Marcus walked back to his quarters in the human workers' wing, unaware that he had just begun unraveling a mystery 10,000 years old. 3 weeks passed, and Marcus settled into his routine. He cleaned the throne room every second shift, then moved to other sections of the palace: the Hall of Treaties, the Grand Observatory, the Imperial Gardens. Everywhere he went, his mop traced the same careful patterns his grandfather had taught him: figure eights, spirals, long, flowing curves that followed the natural lines of the architecture. Strange things began happening in his wake. In the Hall of Treaties, the holographic displays had flickered and failed for months. Engineers from 6 different species had tried to fix them. Nothing worked. Marcus cleaned the floor beneath the projectors on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday evening, every display functioned perfectly. The engineers took credit for their persistence. In the Eastern Wing Medical Bay, 3 nobles had been sick with an unexplained illness for weeks. The best doctors in the Imperium couldn't identify the cause. Marcus mopped the medical bay floors on Thursday. By Friday, all 3 nobles were recovering. The doctors declared a breakthrough in their treatment approach. The Kryn ambassador had been furious for days, shouting at diplomats and threatening to withdraw his species from the Imperium. He walked through a corridor that Marcus had just cleaned. 10 minutes later, the ambassador apologized to everyone and signed a new trade agreement. Political analysts praised the emperor's negotiation skills. Nobody connected these events to the quiet human with the mop cart. Nobody except Lady S.H. Vera. The old historian had been around for 400 years. She had seen patterns before, and she knew when something didn't fit. She began following Marcus at a distance, documenting his movements. She pulled up ancient palace blueprints, maps that predated the Valdrin occupation by millennia. The correlation made her antennae quiver with excitement. Every place Marcus cleaned matched perfectly with lines on the old maps. Lines labeled in the dead language as flow paths, energy channels that the ancients believed connected all things. Most modern species dismiss such ideas as superstition, but the evidence was undeniable. Marcus wasn't just cleaning. He was doing something else, something the Imperium had forgotten. On the 23rd day, everything changed. The Kryn collective delegation arrived without warning. 5 warships dropped out of hyperspace above the capital world. The Kryn were a warrior race, massive and covered in natural armor plating. They respected only strength, and they had come to challenge Emperor Zarthok's authority over their sector. The delegation stormed into the throne room. Their leader, War Chief Tokmar, stood 9 feet tall and carried an energy blade at his hip. His voice boomed across the chamber. Emperor Zarthok, the Kryn bow to no one. We reject your tribute demands. We will have independence or we will have war. The Emperor rose from his throne, scales flushing deep red with anger. You dare threaten the Imperium? I have crushed species more powerful than yours. Guards moved forward, hands on weapons. The Kryn warriors did the same. The tension in the room was suffocating. One wrong word, one wrong move, and blood would spill across the ancient stones. Marcus was in the corner, mopping. He had learned to be invisible during these political moments. But something felt wrong in the room. The energy was jagged, chaotic. He could almost see it, like heat waves rising from desert sand. His grandfather's voice whispered in his memory, "When the flow gets tangled, smooth it out. That's the job." Without thinking, Marcus began to mop in a specific pattern, not his usual figure eights. Something older, something his grandfather had shown him only once. a spiral that started at the outer edge and moved inward, tightening with each rotation. The pattern his grandfather called the calming. His mop moved across the floor, water tracing glowing symbols that faded almost as quickly as they appeared. The air in the throne room began to change. The suffocating tension eased just slightly. Breathing became easier. War Chief Talkmar raised his fist to signal attack. But something made him pause. The rage that had burned in his chest for weeks suddenly felt distant, manageable. He looked at Emperor Zarthok and saw not an enemy, but simply another leader trying to hold power. The clarity startled him. The Emperor felt it too. His red scales faded back to their normal gold green. The anger that had driven him to escalate drained away. He saw the Kryn not as rebels, but as proud warriors protecting their independence, something he could respect. Perhaps, the Emperor said slowly, we can discuss new terms more appropriate for a warrior culture. Talkmar lowered his fist. Perhaps we can. The guard stepped back. The crisis passed like a summer storm, leaving everyone confused about why they had been so angry moments before. Everyone except Lady S.H. Vera. She had watched Marcus the entire time. She had seen the patterns he traced. She had seen the subtle glow beneath the water. And she had seen the exact moment when the energy in the room shifted from chaos to calm. That evening, she found Marcus in the service corridor, emptying his bucket into a drain. "Human," she said, her voice clicking softly. "Do you know what you're doing?" Marcus looked up at her, his weathered face peaceful. He smiled, a small knowing smile. "Just keeping things clean, ma'am. Just keeping the flow moving." Lady S.H. Vera's many eyes studied him. "Your grandfather. He taught you the old ways, didn't he?" "He taught me how to clean properly, how to respect the work. It's more than cleaning." Marcus shrugged. Maybe not. Does it matter? The floor's clean either way." He picked up his cart and walked away, wheels squeaking in the quiet corridor. Lady S.H. Vera watched him go, her ancient mind racing. She needed to search the archives. She needed to find the old texts, because if she was right about what Marcus was, then the Imperium had just welcomed something far more significant than a simple janitor. Somewhere deep beneath the palace, in computer systems that hadn't activated in 10,000 years, ancient code began to wake. It recognized patterns in the energy flow above, patterns that had been built to monitor, patterns made by someone that had been programmed to serve. A custodian had returned. The rumors spread through the palace like wildfire. Servants whispered in corridors. Guards exchanged glances. Even nobles began to talk. The human janitor was special somehow. Things changed when he cleaned. Problems disappeared. Luck improved. Some called it coincidence. Others weren't so sure. Emperor Zarthok heard the whispers and they enraged him. A human? Special? Impossible. Humans were primitives, barely worthy of notice. The idea that this mop-pushing creature could be important insulted everything the Emperor believed about the natural order of the universe. His Imperial Intelligence Corps investigated. They scanned Marcus with every device available. They found nothing unusual. He was human, middle-aged, in decent health. His mop was titanium, old but ordinary. His cleaning supplies were basic. No hidden technology. No genetic modifications. No psychic abilities. But the rumors continued, and that made the Emperor look weak. On the 32nd day, Emperor Zarthok made his decision. He would expose this human as ordinary, as nothing special. He would prove the rumors wrong in front of the entire court. He would show the galaxy that humans were exactly what he claimed. Insignificant. The summons came while Marcus was cleaning a storage room. A guard appeared, weapon ready. "Human, the Emperor demands your presence." "Now!" Marcus put down his mop carefully. "Can I bring my equipment?" "The Emperor will tell you what you need." The throne room was packed. Every noble in the capital had been summoned. News drones floated near the ceiling, broadcasting to millions of worlds. Lady S.H. Vera stood near the front, her compound eyes worried. She had tried to warn Marcus this was coming, but the guards had prevented her. Marcus was led to the center of the room, directly before the throne. Emperor Zarthok loomed above him, scales gleaming under the lights. The chamber fell silent. "Human, The Emperor's voice boomed. You have been the subject of foolish rumors. Some claim you possess special abilities. Some say you are more than you appear. He leaned forward, amber eyes glittering with contempt. I do not believe in rumors. I believe in proof. So I give you a choice. Demonstrate these supposed abilities right now, before this assembly, or be executed as a spy spreading false propaganda to undermine the Imperium. The crowd murmured. This was unprecedented. Executing a worker for rumors? But the Emperor's word was law. Marcus stood quietly, his callous hands hanging at his sides. He didn't look afraid. He looked tired. Your Majesty, I'm just a janitor. I don't know what abilities you're talking about. Then you will die. But, Marcus continued, I'd like to do my job one more time. If you'll allow it, let me clean this throne room properly. Just once, the way my grandfather taught me. Then you could decide what I am. The Emperor laughed. You want a mop? That is your defense? Very well. Guards, bring his equipment. Let us watch this human perform his menial task. Let us see these miraculous cleaning abilities. The mockery in his voice was thick. The nobles joined in the laughter. Marcus's mop cart was wheeled in, and he walked to it calmly. He filled his bucket with water, added a solution, and lifted his grandfather's titanium mop. The laughter continued. Marcus began in the northeast corner. Long, smooth strokes. But this time, he didn't use his normal patterns. This time, he used everything his grandfather had ever taught him. Every secret pattern. Every hidden technique. The movements that his family had passed down for generations. Movements they never fully understood, but knew were important. The mop traced complex symbols across the ancient stone. Figure eights that spiraled into each other. Curves that seemed to follow invisible lines. Water spread across the floor, and something strange began to happen. The floor started to glow. The laughter stopped. Beneath decades of dirt and polish, beneath layers of ceremonial wax, the ancient stone revealed itself. Symbols appeared, glowing with soft blue light. They covered the entire floor in intricate patterns, lines that connected and flowed like rivers of energy. The whole room was one massive design, hidden for thousands of years. Lady S.H. Vera gasped. The Nexus Point, she whispered. The legends were true. Marcus continued mopping, and the glow intensified. The air began to shimmer above the floor. Reality itself seemed to ripple and bend. Then shapes began to form. They emerged slowly, like smoke given form and purpose. Dragons, but not creatures of flesh and blood. These were beings of pure light and energy, their scales made of starlight, their eyes burning with ancient intelligence. They were massive, coiling through the air above Marcus, their long bodies weaving between the columns. Astral dragons, beings that existed between dimensions, in the spaces where reality grew thin. The throne room erupted in chaos. Nobles screamed and ran. Guards raised weapons uselessly. Emperor Zarthok gripped his throne, scales flushing white with terror. The dragons could have destroyed them all with a thought. Everyone knew it, but the dragons didn't attack. They circled Marcus gently, protectively. One lowered its great head and regarded the Emperor with eyes older than stars. It made no sound, but everyone in the room felt its message in their bones. This human was under their protection. This human was their partner, not their master. Lady S.H. Vera pushed through the panic crowd. Her voice rang out, clear and certain. Custodial arts. He practices the custodial arts. I thought they were extinct. She turned to face the Emperor, her ancient voice trembling with awe. Your Majesty, this human is a custodian. They were dimensional janitors, maintainers of reality itself. They kept the fabric of existence clean, kept the energy flowing properly between worlds. The old text spoke of them. They disappeared thousands of years ago. We thought the practice was lost forever. Marcus finished his pattern and rested the mop against his shoulder. The dragons coiled around him, their energy warm and comforting. He looked up at the Emperor with calm, steady eyes. I told you, Your Majesty, I'm just a janitor. This is what my family does, what we've always done. We don't serve emperors. We serve the flow. We keep things clean. We keep things moving the way they should. Emperor Zarthok tried to speak, but no words came. His carefully constructed view of the universe was crumbling. Humans weren't primitives. They were custodians of powers the Imperium had forgotten existed. Then, the floor beneath them rumbled. The palace itself began to shake. Ancient systems, dormant for millennia, suddenly activated. Lights appeared in the walls. A voice, old and mechanical, echoed through every corridor. Custodian recognized. Security protocols overridden. Primary directive re-engaged. Warning. Containment breach detected. The void-born stir. Repeat. The void-born stir. Lady S.H. Vera's face went pale. No, that's impossible. The void-born are myth. The mechanical voice continued. This palace was constructed as a prison. The nexus point was sealed to contain them. But the seals have weakened. By cleaning the nexus, the custodian has accidentally. The voice cut off. Somewhere deep below, something ancient and hungry began to wake. The palace AI's voice returned, colder now, more urgent. Emergency. Void-born entities breaching containment. Estimated time to full breach, 17 minutes. Evacuate immediately. The floor cracked near the base of the throne. A thin black line appeared, and from it seeped something that wasn't quite darkness and wasn't quite smoke. It moved like liquid shadow, pulling itself into reality. Where it touched the stone simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not broken, just gone, as if it had never been. A guard aimed his plasma rifle and fired. The bolt passed through the shadow thing without effect. The entity flowed toward the guard. He screamed once as it touched his armor. His scream cut off as he dissolved into nothing. Atoms scattered across dimensions. Panic exploded. Nobles trampled each other, rushing for exits. More cracks appeared across the floor. More shadows seeped through. They were multiplying, spreading like an infection through reality itself. Emperor Zarthok stood frozen on his throne, watching his palace come apart. "What are they?" he whispered. Lady S.H. Vera's voice shook. Void-born, entities that exist in the spaces between realities. They consume dimensional energy. They collapse the barriers that keep universes separate. The Vaudren didn't build this palace as a seat of power. They built it as a prison, 10,000 years ago. A prison to hold these things. Marcus watched the shadows spread, his mind racing. The astral dragons hissed and retreated, unable to touch the Void-born directly. They were creatures of energy. The Void-born consumed energy. It was a bad match. Why now? Marcus asked, why are they escaping now? The AI answered, for 10,000 years, the nexus point accumulated negative energy. Violence, corruption, greed. The Void-born fed on it, but the prison held because the concentration kept them contained in one area. You clean the nexus. You disperse that energy. The prison seals, weakened over millennia, could not adapt. The barriers are failing. Marcus felt sick. He'd caused this. By doing his job, by cleaning properly, he'd released something terrible. His grandfather's lessons had never prepared him for this. A void-born entity lunged at a fleeing noble. An astral dragon tried to intercept but recoiled, burned by the anti-energy. The noble vanished in silence. Can we contain them again? Marcus asked the AI. Negative. The seals are broken. The void-born will spread across this world within hours. Within days, they will breach into normal space entirely. Within weeks, they will begin consuming this dimension. There is no known weapon that can stop them. Lady S.H. Vera grabbed Marcus's arm. But you're a custodian. The old text said custodians could manage dimensional barriers. I'm a janitor, Marcus said, his voice hollow. I clean floors. I don't fight monsters. It's the same thing, she insisted. Don't you understand? Cleaning isn't about making things look nice. It's about putting things where they belong. The void-born aren't evil. They're just mess, energy in the wrong place. You need to clean them up. Marcus looked at his mop, at the dragon circling overhead, at the expanding shadows consuming his workplace. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. Everything has its proper place, boy. Our job is to help things find it, I can't do this alone, Marcus said quietly. This palace is huge. There's too much corruption, too much accumulated wrong. One custodian can't clean it all before those things spread. He closed his eyes, thinking. Then his eyes opened, filled with determination. But maybe one custodian can call for help. He planted his mop on the glowing nexus point. The dragons seemed to understand. They wrapped around the mop, channeling their energy through it. Marcus felt the power flow through him, vast and terrible and clean. The nexus point blazed with light. He sent out a call. Not words. Something deeper. A signal that traveled through the flow, through the energy that connected all things. A signal that only certain people could hear. People whose families had cleaned for generations. People who carried dormant knowledge in their blood. On Earth, a woman mopping a hospital floor in New York suddenly stopped. She felt something. A pull. A memory that wasn't hers. She looked at her mop and whispered, "I need to go." On Europa Station, a man cleaning mining equipment froze. Ancient patterns filled his mind. His hands remembered movements he'd never learned. On Mars Colony, an old woman scrubbing a schoolhouse floor began to cry. "They're calling us," she said to no one. "After all these generations, they're finally calling us home." Across dozens of human worlds, thousands of janitors and custodians and cleaning staff stopped their work. They didn't understand what was happening. They only knew they needed to go to the imperial capital. Now, immediately, it was the most important thing they'd ever do. They dropped their tools, booked passage on ships, borrowed money, called in favors. Human cleaning staff across the galaxy began moving toward one destination. They came by transport ship and cargo hauler. They came in groups and alone. They brought their mops and brooms and buckets. They brought their family tools, passed down through generations. The Imperium's traffic control couldn't understand it. Hundreds of ships requesting emergency landing, all carrying humans, all carrying cleaning staff. No explanation, just an overwhelming need to reach the palace. In the throne room, the Voidborn continued to spread. Emperor Zarthok finally found his voice. "Human, Marcus, I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. Please, save my world. I'm begging you." The proud emperor knelt before the janitor. His nobles, those who hadn't fled, knelt too. Marcus looked at them, then at the spreading shadows. "I don't know if I can, but help is coming. We're going to try." A void-born entity, larger than the others, began pulling itself through a massive crack near the throne. It was huge, a tear in reality itself, darkness that would swallow the world. Lady S.H. Vera's voice was barely a whisper. "They won't arrive in time." Marcus gripped his mop tighter. "Then I guess I need to hold until they do." The astral dragons roared, their voices shaking the palace. They couldn't fight the Voidborn directly, but they could buy time. They could slow them down. Marcus began to mop again, tracing desperate patterns, trying to reinforce reality itself against the tide of nothing that threatened to consume it all. His arms ached. Sweat poured down his face. But he didn't stop. The first human reinforcements would arrive in 30 minutes. He just had to hold for 30 minutes. 30 minutes had never seemed so impossibly long. Marcus's arms burned with exhaustion. For 28 minutes, he had fought reality itself, mopping patterns that reinforced the dimensional barriers while the Voidborn pressed against them. The astral dragons wove around him, channeling energy, buying precious seconds. But it wasn't enough. The massive tear near the throne continued to widen, and shadows poured to like water from a broken dam. Then he heard it, the sound of wheels on marble, squeaking, rattling wheels. Hundreds of them. They came through every entrance. Old women with push brooms, young men with mop buckets, middle-aged workers with scrub brushes, humans of every age, every background, every colony world. They wore janitor uniforms, maintenance coveralls, custodian badges. They carried tools that had been in their families for generations. A woman in her 60s pushed her cart next to Marcus. She had kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun. "Sorry we're late, dear. Traffic was terrible." A young man took position on his other side. My grandmother told me stories. I never believed them, but my hands remember. More arrived. They spread across the throne room, into the corridors, throughout the palace grounds. Thousands of human custodians, all answering a call they didn't fully understand. They looked at Marcus, waiting. Lady S.H. Vera stepped forward, her voice urgent. They need coordination. Someone has to guide them. Marcus nodded. He raised his mop high, and the astral dragons roared. The sound resonated through the nexus point, through every human in the palace. Suddenly, they all knew the patterns, the movements, the ancient knowledge locked in their bloodlines awakened all at once. They began to work. It was like watching an orchestra perform. Each custodian moved in perfect rhythm with the others. They mopped and swept and scrubbed in synchronized patterns that covered the entire palace. The designs they created interwove, connecting, forming a massive seal that stretched for miles. Where their mops touched, reality strengthened. The cracks stopped spreading. The void-born recoiled from the barriers of pure order the custodians created. More astral dragons appeared, drawn by the gathering of so many custodians in one place. Dozens of the magnificent creatures filled the air, their scales gleaming with starlight. They weren't servants or pets. They were partners, ancient allies of those who maintained the boundaries between worlds. Emperor Zarthok watched from his throne, too awed to speak. His guards stood useless, their weapons meaningless against this battle. This wasn't warfare. This was something older and more fundamental. This was maintenance on a cosmic scale. Marcus felt the flow now, really felt it for the first time. It wasn't mystical or magical. It was simply the way energy moved through reality, the current that connected all things. His grandfather had been right. Everything flowed. A good custodian just helped it along, removed the blockages, cleaned up the messes. The void-born weren't evil. They were just energy that belonged somewhere else, trapped in the wrong dimension for 10,000 years, feeding on corruption and pain. They needed to go home. Marcus changed his pattern, not sealing, redirecting. Listen, he called to the other custodians. We're not fighting them. We're cleaning them up, put them back where they belong. Understanding rippled through the assembled workers. Their movements shifted. Instead of barriers, they created pathways, channels. The astral dragons understood immediately and joined the effort, opening tiny portals between dimensions. Each sweep of a mop guided void-born entities toward the portals. Each stroke of a broom pushed the darkness back where it belonged. The custodians weren't destroying the void-born. They were simply putting the mess back in the trash bin. The shadows began to flow backward, pulled by the collective effort of thousands of workers who knew, deep in their bones, how to make things go where they should. But the largest tier remained. The massive rip in reality near the throne continued to pulse with hungry darkness. It was too big, too unstable. The entity trying to pull through was enormous, a void born so old and powerful that it threatened to drag the entire planet into the void with it. Marcus looked at it and knew what he had to do. Keep the pattern going, he shouted to the others. Don't stop. He walked directly toward the tear, alone. Lady S.H. Vera screamed his name. The Emperor stood, reaching out uselessly. But Marcus didn't stop. His grandfather had told him about the final polish, the technique so dangerous that it was only spoken of in whispers. The cleaner didn't just work on the surface. The cleaner became part of the cleaning process itself, existed in multiple dimensions at once to smooth the barriers between them. Marcus placed his mop against the tear and began the pattern. His body started to fade, becoming translucent. He was phasing between realities, existing in a dozen dimensions simultaneously. The pain was incredible. His consciousness stretched across impossible distances. He could feel himself coming apart, but he kept mopping. Long, smooth strokes. The pattern his grandfather had died teaching him. The secret passed down through 20 generations of Webb family custodians. The massive tear began to close. The void-born entity on the other side roared soundlessly as it was pushed back. Marcus gritted his teeth and kept working, even as parts of him started to disappear into other dimensions. Then, hands gripped his shoulders. The older woman, the young man, dozens of other custodians, forming a chain anchoring him to this reality. The astral dragons wrapped around them all, channeling their energy through the human workers. "You're not alone," the woman shouted. "We're all custodians. We hold together." Their combine will pull Marcus back, kept him solid, while also amplifying his work. The tear sealed. The massive void-born entity was pushed back into the void. The final portal closed with a sound like reality, sighing in relief. Marcus collapsed. The other custodians caught him. He was solid again, whole, exhausted beyond measure, but alive. The palace fell silent. The void-born were gone, returned to where they belonged. The dimensional barriers were reinforced properly for the first time in 10 millennia. The nexus point glowed with clean, clear energy. Emperor Zarthok descended from his throne. His legs shook as he approached Marcus. The proud emperor who had conquered 847 worlds knelt before the exhausted janitor. "I was blind," he said, his voice breaking. "Humanity's gift to the galaxy isn't technology or weapons. It's this. You maintain reality itself. You're the most important species in Imperium, and I treated you like dirt." Marcus managed a weak smile. "Somebody's got to deal with the dirt. Your Majesty. Might as well be us." The Empire changed after that day. The custodial corps was established as the highest honor. Human janitors were recognized not as workers, but as essential guardians. They received respect, resources, proper training in the techniques their families had preserved. But Marcus refused titles and medals. He returned to his small quarters, hung his grandfather's mop on the wall, and smiled. The next day, he went back to work. The palace still needed cleaning, after all. Across the galaxy, human custodians continued their jobs. But now people noticed.